Tune in to the Mack Morning Show.
Hold up. Man, this is one of the hottest talk radio shows this side of the Mississippi. We're talking about the Mack Morning Show, Mondays through Friday from 9 a.m. to 10:20 a.m. Man, get you some on WKRA 92.7 FM. Man, beat me there. Don't meet me there.
Welcome back to a special breaking news Mack Morning Show edition. This is a breaking news update. At this time, the Mississippi legislature is debating the bill that I was talking about on this morning about allowing ICE agents to wait one second, to be assisted by the local authorities, the sheriffs, the police departments are to work hand in hand with these people, creating a whole new system of law enforcement. And let me say why I am totally concerned about this, and welcome to all of our affiliates everywhere. And I've always said that if we had breaking news, we would come in. This is very important. We want you to listen to this debate. It will go as long as we will allow it to go. This is the Mississippi House floor actually going. They're in session right now debating that bill 21, Senate Bill 2114 about the creation of almost creating a whole different law enforcement department. Let's listen in on what they're saying. And they're in the chamber right now, and we're going to be listening to it.
Maybe we could go in there and further clarify what the statute defines under federal law for that. So, but whether there's any ambiguity or anything of that nature, I disagree with that. But as the bill keeps working itself along, we'll look at it.
But, gentlemen, the only thing I'm asking you is what we've been being told. And you would have to agree that we're being told that we wanted to get out of this country, and I think there's significant agreement on that, that people that are here illegally, first of all, that's committing murders, that's robbing, that's in the drug cartels, that's doing all this bad stuff, we want them out of here. I think that's consensus across America. The only thing I'm asking you about this bill is that shouldn't we be consistent there and say that if you're going to bring all these agencies and all of law enforcement, that all of the power of the state of Mississippi should be turned on those who are illegal? And that's all I was asking you. Would you be amenable to an amendment that would just say, and providing information on all illegal aliens within the state when requested by the federal government or requested by the state government or requested by these agencies? That's all, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Gentleman from Washington, Mr. Hines.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Gentleman Yield?
Certainly, gentlemen.
I have a question, and I'm just a little curious because of my relatives that are in law enforcement. If an off-duty officer comes out of a store or a building and sees a woman being detained, thrown down on the ground by gentlemen wearing jackets and masks, and she hollers, "Will you help me, please?" and he engages to help the lady who's asking for some safety, she's clearly in duress, will he be charged if he did not know that these were ICE agents and he's an officer? Can he be charged for impeding justice or whatever? Because he's a sworn officer and he's sworn to protect and to serve, and she's asking for some form of protection.
It's a good question, and I'm going to give you the answer right now, because that's the reason why we put in this piece of legislation that the Attorney General shall investigate any actions. It doesn't say that. I could read all 6 lines, but the understanding is they shall investigate any agency, department, or any other subdivision the state alleged, and that's where I want you to look at the word alleged, alleged to be in violation of this statute and to prosecute that person or entity. So our Attorney General, which reflects back to the people that's elected by this great state of Mississippi, will have that authority to look back to see that alleged. And so I understand that you're trying to point out individual factual references that could lead down this road or to that road, but if it was just left up to the will of anyone that could do it, the bill has where it is alleged to be in there. And so that's what we're going to allow the Attorney General to do, to look at all of that and as we move forward.
So I guess I got an answer. I'm not quite sure. However, so if while he's doing this and after they inform him he's alarmed that they're ICE, will he be detained in a city or county jail until they sort this out? Because if he is detained, he then goes on suspension for being a law enforcement officer. He can lose his pay or whatever. I'm just asking, because, you know, situations do happen. I just want to make sure I'm clear.
Gentlemen.
Will he be arrested at that scene, yes or no?
Gentlemen, the statute says there's an investigation to be alleged, okay? That's where it's at. Now, our law enforcement agencies in our immigration, I would hope, and this is what I would say, I would hope they would work together for the greater good with enforcement, okay? You're pointing out individual scenarios which you think you can do. You and I are going to agree to disagree on what the language in the statute says, but I appreciate your question.
Gentleman from Monroe, Mr. Crosby.
Will gentleman yield?
Certainly, gentlemen.
So, and I assure you, all I've done is watch Matlock and Perry Mason, so I'll do my best. But the first thing I have is when it talks about the ICE detainees, right, or what have you, I guess my thing is that we're holding someone, and my worry is what happens when they're held too long and we potentially trigger the Fourth Amendment? What in the bill speaks to that? Because it seems like it's blanketed that they can come in and do what they will, and now we have our own laws that we have to follow that could cause an issue.
See, I think that's where you're mistaken on this, gentleman, with regard, we all have habeas corpus in the state of Mississippi under the federal Mississippi constitutions with regard to individual things of that nature. If they're already in a current jail facility with regard to a state charge or a federal charge, all individuals have access to the court system which would be trumped by federal law. So the constitutional stuff are different things that's out there with regard to this. This is just saying we're not going to have an interference with regard to current law that's being amended to that.
Okay, so, well then let's go a little bit further. So, because holding someone is still holding someone, correct, gentlemen?
This bill does not get into holding someone. This bill gets into whether we're going to have a policy, procedure, or effect. You're talking about illegal detainment, that like.
Sir, I'm speaking to detainment in general.
Well,
this law does say if someone, if I'm an ICE agent and I ask you, Sheriff, to hold someone, this law does speak to that, correct? In general detainment.
They have their policies and procedures, and the state has their policy and procedures, and the county has their policies and procedures.
I asked a yes or no question, gentlemen.
But it does say with regard to detainment, and let me make sure.
So that's like a yes. So if someone's being held, gentlemen, or what that, who incurs that cost?
Anyone that's held in a county or a state facility there would be responsibility of the county. You know, the interesting argument, and I know you weren't in this body because you've just gotten here, and this is my first friendly interrogation by you, but I remember the exact opposite argument made by sides that opposed this bill when it came into effect. So I just want to point out that it's interesting that over the period of, 10 years, that some sides have changed with regard to anything on this issue.
I appreciate that, gentleman, but as you said, I wasn't here. I wasn't here 60 days ago, so I'm not familiar with that conversation. But to the point that now we have ICE agents that can now have the sheriffs put people in jail, and that cost goes to the county. How do we speak to having the crowds now in the jails, and who pays for that now when the county goes over budget?
Gentlemen, the legislation talks about complying and with request, okay, and with detainer and with other things.
Correct.
And I've answered the question, okay, and it's a violation of state law. It would be a violation of the federal law, okay, and so that's where we are now. The individual argument that we had many years ago was they would never come pick them up and take them, but I believe it would be up to ICE on how they do that. I cannot speak to how that would happen, but that is getting into peripheral matters that we're not going to expand beyond the scope of this. What we're going to say is that we're going to not have policies and procedures that interfere with federal immigration law, and that's where we are with regard to that.
Jim, I understand that, but we also, as legislators, and I know you being more my senior understand this, we are also responsible for the budget that comes from the top down. Someone is going to have to pay for the actions being done by these federal officers, and it will be these county these county sheriff's departments. And so that has to be a real concern, because if we increase all of these, again, and hopefully we don't have these issues, but there's a reality that this is happening around the country already. If we increase the cost of our prisons and the cost of our court jail houses, someone will have to pay for that, and we will be here, as you said earlier, a year from now dealing with that issue. Would you not agree on that?
This is already the law with regard to any federal offense, gentlemen, even if it doesn't have to do with immigration. So, give me just a second.
Yes, sir.
Just a second, gentlemen. It's already. So if you got an issue with that, I know you're disagreeing with the immigration status. You need to take that up with the federal government for every other request that they do on your city and your county.
Absolutely, sir. Last question, and I'll leave you be. Again, there's language that speaks to it that says that all aliens within the state. My only fear about that is that it doesn't speak actually to anyone that's actually in custody, charged, or convicted. It's open blanketed, which means that anyone that's detained could potentially be added into it. So again, I would just say that, again, to your point, again, we've only met a couple of times. I do trust that when we get to debate on this, on building it out, that we make sure that we are taking care of Mississippians, not so much carrying out what the federal guidelines mean, but that every Mississippian here is being taken care of. I do thank you.
Thank you for your friendly questions.
Gentleman from Lawrence, Mr. Evans. While he's getting ready, I've got the gentleman from Holmes for an amendment, and I've got the gentleman from Adams to speak on final passage. Is that correct? Anyone else? Have I missed? All right, gentleman from Lawrence, you're recognized.
Thank you, Speaker. Gentleman yield.
Yes, sir.
Gentlemen, believe it or not, I think I have a friendly question here. And for purposes of this debate, purposes for the audio record and video perhaps of the session today, you've been talking about Mississippi policies and procedure. You're trying to establish a Mississippi policy and procedure that we will, in fact, cooperate with federal, state, whatever law enforcement we have. Our law enforcement is required to cooperate with them, right? And vice versa. Not trying to trick you or anything. That was as simple as I stated.
Gentlemen, we brought forward section 71-11-1, which talks about, which no changes are to, that policy's been in effect for a while. Whatever, I mean, I'm not saying I necessarily agree with how you stated that. I'm telling you I'm going to agree with what's in this statute, because that's what's been voted, and your opinion is yours, which I respect, and so what my opinion is going to matter what's in this statutory code right here, and that's where we are.
My statement just then wasn't my opinion. It was my recitation of what I thought I heard you say up to this point, that we're merely trying to make a Mississippi policy and procedure that say our local law enforcement, whatever the agency is, Mississippi related, that it will cooperate with ICE or any other federal agency that has a need to come into Mississippi. Is that correct?
What I referenced was, I said that this is what it is, and this is what we have. We brought forward this section that talks about the legislative intent. So that I'm going to let the statute of that speak for itself.
The legislative intent is discerned from the video that we do, the audio, the discussions that we have on the floor of the House. You can't establish legislative intent by saying it's said in the statement. But nevertheless, let me ask you this. I'm trying to be friendly. I'm not trying to be tricky. I know I'm a lawyer too, and I know you are, and you dodge, and you know we dodge, and we do that kind of stuff. But let me ask you this. Would you agree with me that it would never be the intent of this legislative body to require anyone to assist anyone else to do any illegal act? Citizen, law enforcement, preacher, speaker, we are never going to have a legislative intent to require someone to assist anyone else to do an illegal act. I think that's an easy question. I may be wrong.
Gentlemen, I'll talk about the bill with you all I want, and all you want to talk about it, if you want to get down here in between any of the paragraphs of 16 to 86, I'm willing to talk with you about it, but all of the lead-in information of what I will or will not agree to, what I'm agreeing to is in this statute right here that I'm presenting. And so if you want to talk about the legislation, let's roll. If so not, we're going to move on.
So you're not going to answer my question that it is the intent of this legislature never to require anyone to help anyone else or any other agency do anything that is illegal. You won't answer that question.
Gentlemen, I'm answering the question on the legislation.
Thank you, gentlemen. You did in fact answer. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's so ridiculous.
Lady from Hines, Ms. Butler-Wash.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the gentleman yield?
Certainly.
My question is, in regard to this legislation, will this legislation lead to potentially where our state will have a state holding facility in regards to the illegal immigrants?
I can't talk to whether we'd have a state holding facility. I know that there's been some talk about federal purchasing something for a holding facility, but I can't talk to you about that. I can talk to you about the bill.
And my question stems from the gentleman from Crosby. When we talk about our county law enforcement in Hinds County, we're in the process of trying to secure funds to build a new jail for those that we currently have incarcerated. So that's my concern, that will anything in this legislation lead to that, to take the burden off of the local municipalities and counties that would be doing this? Lady,
there's already burdens that are put on local and county facilities with regard to violation of federal law. I certainly can sympathize with you and your district and needing additional jail facilities, but I can't speak to that right now. What I can speak to is what we're going to do with regard to amending current state law to go that a little bit further. All right,
thank you.
Gentleman from Hines, Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The gentleman yield.
Certainly, Mr. Brown. Certain gentleman.
I would just like to ask a simple question, Mr. Gentleman, and that is, why can't we all get along?
I tell my two kids that all the time when they get to fighting. So
you got two groups of citizens of Mississippi here debating law and procedure and policies, and yet we can't see eye to eye, not even halfway, it don't look like, on any of this discussion. It's just a question I'd like for you to ponder. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
All right, I don't see any further questions. I recognize the gentleman from Holmes for his amendment.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to have the amendment read if I can, please.
Madam Clerk, please read the gentleman's amendment.
Amendment number 1 by Clark and Scott. On line 25, before the word interferes, add the word unlawfully. Further amend on line 25, before the word enforcement, add the word lawful. Further amend on line 46, before the word aliens, add the word illegal.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, I'll be totally honest. I have some reservation about offering this amendment. And the reason being is when I first got here, some of the old timers around here, Mr. Bailey, senior gentleman from Washington and others, always told us when you see a snake, you can't fix it. You should just kill it. But yet and still, I want to come forward because I think this is a snake that deserves to be fixed, because I don't think we really realize what we're about to do. Now, my amendment is very simple, and the gentleman from Lawrence kind of touched on it. It simply basically says that no state agency, no law enforcement official, nobody working for a government entity have to break the law. They do not have to assist in anybody who's trying to break the law. And when you think back 18 months ago, let's all think back. Regardless of party affiliation, regardless of race, 18 months ago up to now, everyone in this house would have to admit that some things has happened that you would have never dreamed in your entire life that would happen. Some say government have overreached. And what we are simply trying to do, ladies and gentlemen, is trying to protect the men and women who work for this state, for our very agencies. And let me give you an example. Go to, if you look at the bill says all state agencies, departments, counties, municipalities, political subdivisions, universities, colleges, community colleges, junior colleges, all agents, employees, and law enforcement. University Medical Center, state agency. ICE show up and want medical records. The law says they can't get them, but if they refuse to turn over your medical records, my medical records, they're in violation of this law. They show up at the Department of Revenue. Our law said that those are confidential records, but if they refuse to turn them over, guess what? They're in violation of this law. They show up at the Health Department. HIPAA says it's a violation. But you know what? If they don't, guess what? They're in violation of this law. So, ladies and gentlemen, regardless of where you stand on this position of immigration, we all agree that certain records, certain information that our government, that we entrust our government agencies to be the protectors of, should not be turned over illegally. If ICE need those records, they have recourse now. It's called going to the judicial system, filing for subpoenas, and they can get them. But we do not need to put somebody at the Department of Revenue in a position of receiving a certified letter from immigration saying turn over records, and they know it's a violation. And they have to sit there and make a decision on whether they're going to do it or not. We shouldn't do that to our state employees. We shouldn't do that to our state employees. Now, I'm going to vote no on the bill. I'm letting you know now. But this is, I think the gentleman been talking about the intent of legislation. I think this amendment would be the intent that he's been talking about throughout this debate. So, ladies and gentlemen, I ask you to vote yes on amendment number 1. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Do you yield for a question, gentlemen? You got 30 seconds.
I reclaim my time. Mike wasn't on. Anyway,
you got it.
Okay. Gentlemen, I want to ask you, the gentleman said that years ago we didn't want state involved in it. We won't allow the federal government. Have you seen things in that time, like people getting shot in the street like dogs, the excessive force, illegal search and seizure, warrantless search, busting into the house of people who are not even aliens without a warrant? Have you seen all that happen?
I've seen all of that, gentlemen.
And would you want that to happen in your state without the duly elected law enforcement officers who are trained and we trust saying, hold on a minute, you may not be right, that is not the law? Would you want them to do the right thing?
I would want them to do that. I would want them to do that, and gentlemen, as the lady from Humphrey said, they've taken an oath to do that.
Exactly. And that's all I want to say. Mr. Speaker, I've asked my question. I don't have to speak on the bill. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Two of you work well together. I recognize the chairman to respond.
Ladies and gentlemen of the House, Gentleman Holmes is one of the best legislators out there. This matter has been sitting on the calendar for over a week. No one has come to me with any questions or concerns during that time. I distinctly remember, and I like to bring this up, when the gentleman, we were trying to consolidate his district, and he stood up in front of this body and gave the most impassioned speech I could remember, and that speech was, if we're going to close that school, let's donate it to charity. And so we did that, or let a group, and that changed it from a 1/3 to a 2/3. Now, I do believe the gentleman over here has good intentions with what he wants to do. The amendment has not been brought to me prior. I will look, as this bill goes through the process, to any other changes. I'm not saying I'm technically disagreeing with all of your changes at this moment, but I know that we're going to have to move this bill through the process. And when you got an individual that has burned the body on a good amendment once, that don't mean he can't do it twice. So, but he also said he had never dreamed of stuff. Who would have ever imagined where we are from 4 years ago to the last 18 months as what's happened across this nation with regard to certain things and not. And interesting to me, the positions that were taken over 10 years ago have sort of flipped now. So what I'm going to ask the body to do, and I'm going to give you full assurance, is that I'm going to continue to look at this as we move the bill through the process. I know he's trying to create words that could create doubt, and I'm not saying I disagree with the gentleman on some stuff, and I'm not saying that we won't come back in and tighten this bill up. I don't see that this bill is going to go straight forward as we move it through the process. But I will give assurances to the body that if there's something that I need to correct on this bill moving forward, that I will, that I'll sit down with the gentleman from Holmes to make sure that we do those types of things. So, with that being said, we all know in this body that federal law is going to trump with regard to immigration, and it's going to trump what we put in this piece of legislation. Okay? So, with that, I would ask that the body oppose the amendment of the gentleman from Holmes.
Recognize the author to close.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, I consider this box to be the truth box. When I step up to this box, now if you talk to me outside of the box, might be a different story, but when I step into this box, I speak the truth. And when the gentleman refers to the consolidation, everything I said, he might be right, but I told the complete truth when I was up here. But let me just say this. We're adding 3 words to this amendment. It's 3 words. The first word is lawful. Other word is unlawful. And the last word is illegal. There's nothing hidden in those simple amendments. And what I'm just going to say to you is that the only thing we're doing is carrying out what the gentleman said the intent of this legislation is. State agencies will still have to be required to do what? Work with ICE. Our sheriff departments will still have to work with ICE. But if something that they deem to be illegal, and they have legal counsel, then they do not have to conform. If they see a rogue ICE agent doing something, they do not have to violate the oath that they took and assist that ICE agent. That's the only thing that this amendment does. I don't think it do no foul or harm to the intent of this legislation. And again, I ask you to vote yes on the amendment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
All right. Question occurs on the adoption of Amendment 1. If you favor the gentleman's amendment, indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Noes have it. Noes have it. Roll call is demanded. There is sufficient number. Open machine, Madam Clerk. If you favor the amendment, vote aye. If you're opposed, vote no. Has everyone voted? Has everyone voted? Close the machine, Madam Clerk. By a vote of 43 yeas, 71 nays, the amendment fails. All right. Gentleman from Adams passes on his speaking to close. Anything further, Mr. Chairman?
Final passage, Mr. Speaker.
He moves final passage. Open machine, Madam Clerk. Favor the bill, vote aye. If you're opposed, vote nay. Has everyone voted? Has everyone voted? Close the machine, Madam Clerk. By a vote of 77 yeas, 40 nays, the bill passes. All right, we will break here for lunch. At 1 o'clock, we will recess until 2. Before we do that, gentleman from Green, Mr. Birch.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have an announcement. Corrections Committee is going to have a hearing. It starts immediately after adjournment in 113. It's open to all members.
That has been passed by the legislature.
All right.
This is James Mack, MacMan Morning Show, Mack Media Productions, Hot Talk Radio and Television Network everywhere. It has this bill is a dangerous bill because it opens up the door, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, it opens up the door for any police department, if this goes through and hits the governor's desk, if it doesn't stop, if something doesn't happen, and we'll see how fast they'll put this in effect. They're trying to do it as quick as possible. Most of these Republicans, all of them, are aligned with the orange man that lives in the White House. They're staunchly harsh, destroying the very fabric of the black community in the state of Mississippi. And now you understand why I say what I'm saying and why I am bringing to the forefront these things that are happening. Right up under our nose at lunchtime, everybody's going to lunch, doing what they have to do, and I'm not knocking you for what you're doing. But this thing has gone on, and they have created this monster, and we're going to see if we can get the vote total, of what's going on right now, and it is just really, 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 really concerning to me as a individual and as a reporter to be able to report these dreadful things that are happening in the state of Mississippi. And we cannot deny the fact, and I keep trying to tell people, you can't deny the fact that they're trying, these Republican legislators and these people that are aligned with that orange man that lives in the White House, that they're aligning themselves with him in order to do what they're doing. This has been James Mack. This was a special report. I'm going to come back later this evening with more information on this, and you ain't missed nothing. Get the replay. Thank you for coming in, all of you that came in Look out for another special report later on this evening. This is James Mack, Mack Man Morning Show special broadcast.